Hey, folks, this is Curtis Menke, your McHenry High School College Career Counselor, coming to you with the Financial Aid, FAFSA, and Scholarships presentation. In other words, how to make your next steps as affordable as possible. It's one thing to help your students kind of navigate the post-secondary waters, identify things, and act on them. It's another thing to make sure that it is as affordable as possible. So whether you're watching this live with us on YouTube or whether you're watching the recording, we welcome you and are grateful for your engagement and participation. This morning, I am joined by a special guest from arguably our strongest post-secondary partner, MCC. We have Julie Durkin with us this morning. Julie, do you want to say hi?
Sure. Hello, everyone. Welcome. Like Curtis said, I'm a financial aid specialist right down the road at MCC. If you have any questions after this presentation, you can feel free to reach out to me with any questions that you have.
Yeah. So again, we are during this live presentation for any of our live viewers, you can enter comments into the comment box there on YouTube, which is where we're live streaming right now. So again, if you have comments or questions throughout, feel free to enter those in the chat box there, or the comment box, I should say, in YouTube. We can see those and we can respond to them in real time for you. Again, we will respond to those as we go. Julie and I, just given kind of the details and the nuances and being real with you, the stress of this process, we're going to make this more of a conversation than a formal presentation. So we hope that you appreciate that. We did an in-person session of this last night on September 22nd, and I think the attendees there appreciated the more conversational nature of this content, and especially in this kind of format. So again, if you're watching live and anything pops up, throw those questions in the comment box. I will make the disclaimer, I am not a financial planner. However, we will do our best to respond. Some of those really nuanced situational questions we may or may not be able to provide you in the moment response to. Regarding personal finances or family situation or investments, or how those factor into financial aid, but we can certainly get you referred to the right resources and personnel. So we're going to kind of break this presentation into a couple of parts. We're going to start just kind of by talking about financial aid and the FAFSA as a whole. What is it? What isn't it? How does it work? When do you do it? Where do you do it? Then I'm going to take a few moments and talk about scholarships, which is the other way that you can make your next steps more affordable. Some people think of these topics as the same, financial aid and scholarships. In my mind, it's easier for me to frame them if I think of them as two slightly different things that have the same purpose, which is to make your steps more affordable. And then Julie will talk about in more detail what MCC offers for its prospective students, as well as the services that MCC has for anyone in the county, regardless of if your student intends to be a student at MCC or not. So we're going to start just by kind of defining financial aid as a whole. So basically, financial aid itself is funding that is available to students, again, just to help offset, the costs of your education, your training beyond high school. The main sources of financial aid are the federal government, more specifically the Department of Education, the state government, so what can Illinois chip in, and then the schools themselves. So using MCC as just sort of our example this morning, like what can MCC do to help offset some of those costs? Julie, do you have a different way of framing that?
Sure. So yes, I agree with you that kind of separating the scholarships and federal or state financial aid are completely different, because if you may not qualify for anything from the FAFSA, you're certainly going to be eligible for outside scholarships. You're definitely going to want to apply for any scholarships that the school you're going to has online. MCC actually has an application where you can just fill out one, and then it applies to a bunch of different scholarships. And I know a lot of schools around the area do that as well. I know NAU does it. Judson University, a private school out here, does it as well.
We're going to dive right into kind of the big beast part of the financial aid process. So we're going to get into a little more detail about some of the terminology that folks run into when they're looking into financial aid, and especially when it comes to actually completing the FAFSA itself. The FAFSA is the application for financial aid. Not that I expect folks to remember this. It stands for free, emphasis on the word free, application for federal student aid. So that's what the actual FAFSA acronym stands for. There's basically two reasons why students complete the FAFSA. The first one is the obvious one, and that's the intent of the FAFSA. And again, it's to make your next steps as affordable as possible and looking for additional funding and help from those various sources, the federal government, the state government, and then the institutions a student is considering. Additionally, as we have bolded on the screen right here, as of a couple years ago, so the class of 2023 is the third graduating class in Illinois in which completing the FAFSA is technically a state of Illinois graduation requirement. When folks complete it, we can, at the school level, we can bring up basically a list of McHenry High School students who have completed it. We don't see people's financial status. We don't see what people submit. Basically, we just get a list saying, yes, these students have completed it, and that's how we cross-check it. Again, this is a state of Illinois graduation requirement that all public high schools have to adhere to. This is not one that McHenry High School or any of our other local districts have put in place. I'll briefly say the intent of the law is to help make sure that, again, folks aren't leaving money on the table. There are also families or students who don't consider next educational or training steps beyond high school because they automatically in their own minds rule out the affordability of it. So the intent of the law is to help make sure that people know exactly what's available to them. Is it a little clunky the way the state does it? Yeah, I understand the intent behind it. This graph down here really kind of summarizes how financial aid works. So essentially, every school has a cost of attendance. That cost definitely includes tuition. It also includes living expenses if a student is living on campus. It can also include some ancillary sort of expenses, travel expenses, books, fees. So there's an overall cost of attendance that every school has. So the way financial need is calculated by the federal government, Department of Education, they take that overall cost per school, they subtract what their algorithm says a family is expected to, or a family is capable of contributing financially, and then that equals financial need. I'm not going to pretend like the expected family contribution is one that I think most families would agree with, but again, that's how the Department of Education, per their formulas, their algorithms, determine what they think a family can contribute on an annual basis. Again, Julie, do you have another way of framing that?
No, I think you said exactly what it is like at every school, at least the schools that I've seen. Cost of attendance, like you talked about, can include transportation, books, fees, miscellaneous, if you need supplies for class, really anything. So the cost of attendance is going to be different at maybe a public institution than a private institution. So I really encourage you to fill out the FAFSA every year because depending on your situation, things could change.
Yeah. So on screen right now are just some examples of a handful of schools and different types of schools that are not too far from here. So MCC, and I used a resource called College Navigator, which is a government database, and it calculates, cost of attendance, adding in tuition and all that. So although on an annual basis, the tuition at MCC for a full-time student is only about $4,000 for 2 semesters worth of classes. Their calculated cost of attendance is $9,000 after you factor in books, fees, travel, some daily, living expenses, things like that. So our constant here in this little formula we have is expected family contribution. So this is, I guess, an example of a student who is considering MCC, a 2-year public school, Northern, a 4-year public school, and I just picked Bradley as a relatively close 4-year private school that people have heard of. So if this student is applying to all of them, that family contribution is going to be the same across all. And then you can see what each school's cost of attendance is, and then how the federal government would calculate financial need based on that. Getting into types of financial aid, there's essentially three types of financial aid. When people think FAFSA financial aid, this is typically the one people think of. Grants, which is free money, doesn't have to be repaid. Not everyone, unfortunately, is awarded grants because the typical eligibility criterion include financial need. Again, per how the federal government calculates that financial need. Things like household size, the amount of people in the household and school can also impact that calculus as well. And then down here, there are other types of grants. These are the two most common types. I didn't want to get too jargony with this morning's presentation, not to insult anyone's intelligence, but again, there's a lot of layers and terminology to financial aid if you really want to do your dig in there. These are the two most common types of grants. The Pell Grant is a federal grant. It's awarded by the Department of Education. It's estimated for this year to be around $6,900. And then there is a state of Illinois grant called a MAP grant. It's estimated to be a little over $5,700 this year. Again, those are typically awarded based on that financial need calculus. Again, when people aren't awarded grants, they assume I'm not eligible for any financial aid because I just working with families over the years, this is typically the one that people think of. Julie, what's your experience with grants and working with families on this?
Sure. So I just want to mention that by filling out the FAFSA, that is basically applying for the MAP grant as well, which is not federal, but just by applying for the FAFSA, you're applying for that state aid. So your school will know if you're eligible or not right away based on all that information. Grants can be, you could be eligible for that 6,000 at one school, or you could be eligible for 2,000. It depends on credit hours and all that other stuff that Curtis talked about above. It's based on household size, all of that. So you can see it change from year to year. If you have 2 kids in college this year, but only 1 next year, you might not have as much financial need, vice versa.
Mm-hmm. I'll make a note as well, and Julie, jump in again, please, if you want to take this further or have a different way of framing it. MAP grants are awarded by the state of Illinois. They can only be used if you attend a participating school in Illinois, which is the vast majority of all public and private schools in Illinois. For that reason, I like to see our seniors who are considering four-year schools, I'd like to see at least one school from Illinois on people's application lists, even if they want to get as far from Illinois as possible, which I completely understand. I'm not a big fan of mosquitoes, as most people are not. However, I'd like to see at least one school, and maybe it's MCC, on everybody's application list, because you won't know if you're eligible for that MAP grant unless you're applying to a school that's in Illinois.
Right. Yes. I deal a lot with the MAP grants. That's one of my main jobs here is the MAP grant. And when you're going to your school and you're asking, hey, I might be eligible for this grant, they're going to ask you to prove that you do live in Illinois. So usually it's like a driver's license or something, but it's as easy as that if you qualify for this grant. So the FAFSA is a one-stop shop for both of those grants. And we do encourage every student, at least in the area, to apply for MCC, just to have, once you apply for MCC, you're in our system for 10 years, for 20 years, you'll never have to apply again.
The second type of financial aid, this is the ugly one, folks, just putting it out there, are student loans. These are official student loans that come through the Department of Education via completing the FAFSA. Again, as I gave my disclaimer before, I am not a financial planner. However, I can very loosely state that for folks who do have to take out loans to finance a part of their next steps beyond high school, typically it's more inexpensive if your student loans come through the federal government, as opposed to just going to your family bank and saying, I need to borrow money to finance my education. Again, there's some jargon on the screen here. I was debating whether to include this just, because I don't want to drive people over the edge here. There's a couple of different types of loans. Subsidized loans, again, they can be based on financial need again. The Department of Education pays the interest while a student is in school and up through 6 months after they graduate from college. So if you do have to take out loans and you're eligible, the subsidized ones are the better loans because, again, the interest doesn't start accruing until 6 months after you graduate. And there is a maximum loan that typically those are allotted, so about $5,500. Most folks are eligible for unsubsidized loans. Again, these are just like the subsidized ones through the Department of Education. However, the interest does start accruing while a student is in college. And there is a limit there. You can see if someone doesn't qualify for subsidized, you could take up to a little over 20,000. With them, it's about 15. The remainder, if there is a remainder after those loans, can, for better and for worse, the federal government will typically kind of bundle those into a direct plus, also known as parent plus loans. Julie, again, do you have a different way of framing these or a different take on these?
Sure. So yes, I think a lot of students get confused with the difference between subsidized and unsubsidized loan. We've seen students take out an unsubsidized loan and we're like, hey, why didn't you accept your subsidized loan? So if you are eligible for the subsidized loan, you're going to want to take that out first. And you're going to want to take out with any of these loans just what you need, not anything more. Take out exactly what you need because those interest rates can really add up from personal experience as well. So only take out what you need. Those private schools or those state schools with the higher costs, you may need to take out a loan. A lot of students have to do it. So your school will walk you through that process. I know it's kind of scary at first. How do I even get a loan? But go talk to your financial aid office. You can come into our office. We can walk you through that process.
Yeah. The other type of financial aid is one that I don't think gets enough publicity. It's called work study. A work study, just kind of using simple terms. Again, technically, it is a form of financial aid. It's the simple way of describing it is that it's a part-time job on a college campus, but they don't take taxes out. So maybe you're away at a four-year school and you get a work study job working the help desk in your dorm, or working in the cafeteria, or working at the IT help desk, or working in the library or as a peer tutor. If it is a work study job, then they don't take taxes out. There is on the FAFSA, there is a yes/no question that reads, and Julie, I see you nodding there. There is a yes/no question that reads, are you interested in federal work study? I encourage people to respond yes, so that you get on all the schools you're applying to, so you get on their potential work study list. It does not commit you to anything. It just puts you on their list for consideration when they're awarding those work study jobs. Again, Julie, do you have a different take on that?
Sure. So yes, many people don't even know that this is an option. They just think, oh, I can get a job on campus. But there is a difference between just doing that and doing it with work study. So work study is really awesome because whether you're working in the financial aid office or somewhere else on campus, they're going to work with you on your schedule. And you can have as many hours if you want. I think it caps at 20, but a lot of students anyway aren't going to want all of those hours. If you're on campus for a couple hours between your classes, that's a great opportunity for you to get a work study job. You can get that money put towards your tuition. You can choose a percentage. If you only want like 10%, it'll go right towards your tuition. So it really is helping you pay down that balance, not having to worry so much about that overall cost.
So Julie, we had a question roll in a moment ago that we'll probably get to in a moment, just organically here. What is the FSA ID and who needs one? So that question will get answered here in actually just a moment as we shift focus from what is financial aid to how do I actually complete the FAFSA. So again, the FAFSA itself is the application for everything else that we've been talking about, the different types of financial aid, the federal aid, the state aid, the institutional aid. The FAFSA, most folks complete on their own. It can be completed online at fafsa.gov. Can't stress enough, it's .gov, .gov, .gov. It is not .com. it is through the federal government. Thus, it's a .gov. There is a FAFSA.com that will file your FAFSA for you for the low price of $130. Again, a reminder that the first F in FAFSA stands for free. Several years ago, I had a student who unfortunately filed at FAFSA.com. They did file her FAFSA for her for the low price of $130. The angry, disgruntled version of me, who makes very, very rare appearances, got on the phone with FAFSA.com and was able to get half of her money back. However, she was still out $70 for something that literally has the word free in the title. There is also a downloadable app, again, from the Department of Education. You can find it on the Apple App Store, Google Play, whatever your mobile device preference is. There are also all sorts of help opportunities out there to complete the FAFSA. We haven't publicly promoted this yet. On October 20th, we're going to have an on-site here at McHenry High School FAFSA completion workshop for folks who want that. There will be a sign-up, Genius sign-up, for slots in those probably 45-minute slots to help folks out. So if you want or need a hand with that, you're more than welcome to. Julie, I'm going to steal a little bit of your thunder probably from later on here, but MCC will help anyone with the FAFSA, regardless of if your student intends to ever be a student at MCC. They're here to serve the educational needs of anyone in their district, which is the vast majority of McHenry County. So MCC will help anyone complete the FAFSA. There's a couple of the resources I'm going to throw at you here in a little bit. All right. So what we need to complete the FAFSA, Julie, before we forget, let's start with that FSA ID, if you don't mind.
Sure.
Can you speak to that?
Yeah. So even if your child is filling out the FAFSA for next fall, even though the FAFSA is not available yet, you can actually go on studentaid.gov right now and make those FSA ID and password. The student is going to need one and one parent is going to need one. So you're going to make a username and password. These are very important to remember. So please, please, please write them down somewhere, because trying to remember your username and password and figure it out online is such a hassle once you forgot. So write it down. But yes, that's just your login to get into the application. Every year it'll be the same ID and password. So you can go on right now and do that. For next year, just don't fill out the FAFSA yet, because that's for this current year that's available right now. And I also do want to mention that MCC does have a couple FAFSA workshops coming up. We do have one right now. The only one that we have on the board is the 26th of October, and that's going to be from 4 to 7 p.m.
Yeah. So this is probably the scariest slide that will be in this presentation and the scariest talking point we'll have. As Julie mentioned a moment ago, again, if there are a few other things you take away from this presentation, remember you're completing the 23-24 FAFSA. You're applying for financial aid for next school year, the August to August cycle that most colleges and universities run on. So again, you're completing the 23-24 FAFSA. I got a couple other questions that are rolling in here as well. We'll come back to those maybe when we're done with this section. Again, the info on the screen is what makes completing the FAFSA nerve-wracking for many folks, and I empathize with that completely. With the utmost respect and dignity that I have for the parents and families I work with, talking about things like Social Security numbers, things like family income, investments, cash on hand, savings. Those are not topics that we talk about in plain conversation most of the time, let alone submit, to a third party source. So I again, with all the dignity in the world, I understand why some folks are reluctant to consider completing the FAFSA. It's not that different from completing your taxes. Essentially, when you fill out your taxes, you're sending basically much of that same information to the IRS, which is a different part of the federal government. Again, equally as fun filling out your taxes as completing the FAFSA. But again, I can completely understand why some folks are hesitant or reluctant to complete the FAFSA, because this is information again that is private and is very sensitive, and we are sensitive to that. I had, I've had some folks over the years who don't complete the FAFSA because, for various reasons. One of the ones I get a lot is, my student's not going to college. So, how can this benefit them? Um, I would urge FAFSA completion to see what might be available, just because, again, you don't know what may or may not be out there. Additionally, and then usually when I'm talking with students and families who bring up, my student's not going to college, it typically tends to be students who are considering careers in manufacturing, careers in the trades, careers under that kind of workforce training umbrella. My uncles still run the family farm back in the small hometown that I grew up in. The soybeans are coming out. The feed corn's coming out here in a couple of weeks. So, there's a reason why at McHenry High School we have in our new wing we have a giant manufacturing lab. Why we have a giant construction and woods lab. We want to make sure we're providing opportunities to all students, regardless of their interests, beyond these walls. Our students have heard this from me before. My one goal for every McHenry High School student is get trained in something more than a high school diploma. Community college is kind of coming back to the point here. If your student is considering a career in manufacturing, the trades, against something under the workforce umbrella, I strongly, strongly encourage them to look at what the community college system offers. MCC has an autos program. MCC has a manufacturing program, CNC machining certification, welding certification, construction management certification, engineering technology degrees. They have programs there that are trades or trades like or adjacent to trades or under manufacturing. In a couple of years, they're going to have an HVAC program. These are all things that we associate with workforce training, trades, similar career paths that require more training beyond a high school diploma. An example I found myself using with students recently is, you could go to a classic private trade school to become to become certified in automotive maintenance and pay $30,000 for that. Or you could go to MCC, get the exact same training, the exact same certification, the exact same outcome for about $5,000. So if your student is considering those kinds of fields, have them look at what the community college system offers, despite the fact that, again, the word college is in the name. I understand the irony of that, but community colleges in a lot of ways are trade schools. So, and again, that might sound off topic from this topic, but I don't want someone to not complete the FAFSA because they of any kind of assumption or preconceived notion that that kind of training isn't available at a certain type of institution like a community college. And again, the point is, don't leave money on the table. Again, Julie, do you have again another take on this, another way of framing this?
Sure. So yeah, from what you were just saying, I actually thought of something recently. MCC is partnering with Mercedes-Benz to do kind of like an internship with the automotive programs, which is really awesome. And I had the pleasure of going and hearing some students that have been through the program speak about it. And they talked great things about MCC. Any community college, I'm sure, that has this, you're definitely going to get more of that hands-on, one-on-one time here at MCC than you are at a $30,000 a year private trade school. You're going to get that one-on-one time. You're going to meet the people. You're going to meet the people that you need to kind of further in your career. They'll set you up with an internship. It's really awesome. And another thing that I thought of aside from this is if you're going to, say, a cosmetology school, for example, you can fill out the FAFSA. They accept FAFSA at most cosmetology schools. So even if you're doing something like that, this federal aid may be available to you. So providing this information can save you a lot of money. And usually you might not even need all of this information if your FAFSA can link up to the IRS. That way it's just manual, which is really nice. So I think we might talk a little bit about that later too.
Yeah. Julie, we had another question roll in. We got a situational question. I anticipated getting some situational questions here. Does it matter which parent in a divorced family?
Sure. So the parent that the FAFSA is going to be based on is the student, is the parent that the student resides with the most. And it's going to be the parent. And then if the parent is remarried, step parent, their information as well will be included on there. If you, for whatever reason, maybe your parents were together in 2021 when these taxes are based on, and they're not now, you would do the same thing. You would include the one parent that you're residing with the most and your step parent if applicable.
All right. I'm going to move on to the next slide here. Just a few notes about the FAFSA and some of the after things. Students can submit the FAFSA. You can list up to 10 institutions on there, and you can swap them out afterwards. So maybe you complete the FAFSA, and a few weeks later, your student comes across another institution, another college, another training institute that catches their eye, and they fill out an application. You can go back in and remove a school and add them in. After submitting the FAFSA, students can view a student aid report, which kind of summarizes everything on there. And eventually, every school that you submit the FAFSA to will provide the applicant with their financial aid report, which indicates everything they're eligible for from the federal government, the state government, and that institution. Again, Julie, any comments on this one?
Sure. Yeah. You can put up to 10 institutions, like you say, switch them out. You can do it as soon as the schools that you sent them to receive your FAFSA. So usually from every school you list on there, you'll just get a confirmation email from them when they get your FAFSA. So that's nice to know that they have it. You may have to wait a little bit to get that financial aid package from the school. But just to know that they have it and that it's ready to go once they start awarding is nice. So that's why we encourage you to do the FAFSA earliest as possible. You can do it midnight on October 1st, anytime you want. Set aside 30 minutes to 45 minutes. I promise you it doesn't take as long as you might think it does.
Yeah. Again, as I think we've mentioned before, you can't take direct action on the FAFSA itself until October 1st. We do strongly encourage completing it during October, with probably the absolute latest being Thanksgiving. The reason is some of the money, some of that grant money is first come, first serve. That MAP grant from Illinois that we referenced earlier tends to run out. Historically, it runs out in December, usually early to mid-December. So I would try to get it done during October, and at the very least, or very latest, I should say, November. For any families that may be watching live or watching the video of this, for any non-senior families, I should say, there is a FAFSA estimator, an aid estimator on the Department of Education's website as well. Well, I'll give you the specific web address in a moment here where you can find that. This one, very simply stated, there are a few populations that are not eligible to complete the FAFSA. It tends to be students who do not have a social security number. They are ineligible to complete the FAFSA. However, the state of Illinois a few years ago came up with a different type of financial aid application called the alternative application that students without social security numbers or otherwise ineligible students can use to apply for state aid. Completing that also meets the state's FAFSA completion requirement. In a moment, we'll come back through scholarships. Julie, anything else about the FAFSA or any financial aid related things you want to mention?
Sure. So one thing with this alternative application, a lot of people don't even know about it. So for example, if you're a student and you do have a social security number, but your parents do not, you can still fill out the FAFSA for your parents' social security numbers. All you'll do is list zeros throughout all of that, and it will let you submit the FAFSA all the way through. But if you are a student that maybe does not have a social security number, you may be eligible for that MAP grant through the alternative application. So this is a different website. I think you might have listed it at the end as well. And studentaid.gov, it's isaac.org. But that's where you can find this. And if you're filling out the alternative application, it's very similar to the FAFSA. You're going to create a username and password. So is your parent, and then you'll fill it out, just same information. And then it comes to the school. You'll fill out where you want it sent, and then it comes directly to us.
So moving on to scholarships, which is, again, the other way to help make your next steps more affordable, or as affordable as possible. This is a word that people tend to be a little more familiar with than financial aid and FAFSA. This isn't quite as nuanced, although from students probably consider this to be more stressful, as opposed to parents who consider the FAFSA to be more stressful. Very generally stated, the bullet points on the screen there are sort of the types of scholarships that are available. You have your ones that are awarded based on academic performance or merit. You have competitive ones that people apply for. Need-based sometimes can be its own thing. Sometimes that's kind of woven into the others. And then you have your, athletic talent-based ones. I would argue that more importantly, where do I look for scholarships? Honestly, the biggest source for most scholarship money that most students receive are the schools themselves. What does MCC offer? What does Northern offer? What does Bradley offer? What does U of I offer? A question that I love to see my students ask admissions and financial aid people is, when I'm applying to your institute, how can I make sure I have applied to every scholarship you offer that I am eligible for? So in a few moments, Julia, we're going to look at MCC kind of as an example, and we'll walk through where to find theirs, but also just illustrate how many awards schools typically have as well. It's a lot more than you think. It's not just the full rides, that people sometimes assume. This is one example of a merit scholarship system. This is from the University of Illinois Springfield. I love using this one as an example because it's simple and understandable. I love it when schools are this obvious with things. So the University of Illinois Springfield, which is a public four-year school, about 4 hours away, actually a very small public university as well. They only have about 3,000 undergrads. In the column on the left is unweighted GPA. So what is the unweighted GPA that a graduate has? And then you can see simply that's how much annual merit scholarship money they'll earn in the middle column. And on the right, multiply that times 4, making sure that it's a renewable, to use a word you may run into, scholarship over 4 years. And again, in this example, it's quite simply, what's your unweighted GPA when you graduate from high school? I got a student right now who's actually strongly considering the University of Illinois Springfield. This person's unweighted GPA as of now, before senior grades are calculated, is 3.37. So myself and the student's counselor calculated what the student would have to earn this year to change that second number from a 3 to a 4 to double the amount of merit scholarship that this person will receive. This person has to, I think, of the 12 semester long classes they're in this year, they have to earn, I think, 9 A's and 3 B's. And that will literally double the merit scholarship this person will receive if indeed they do decide to go with Illinois Springfield. Local scholarships are another great source of money to, again, help make those next steps more affordable. This is a very literal term. Local scholarships are awarded by local organizations. So the McHenry Kiwanis Club, the McHenry Lions Club, the McHenry County Retired Teachers Foundation, these different organizations that are within the community, within the county. Sometimes I will promote some state level ones or some Chicago area ones as well that I think our students might be good candidates for as well. There is a link in every student's Schoology course that links directly to our list of local scholarships. That list right now is very skimpy because the vast majority of local scholarships come out after the first of the year. That I would encourage, especially our seniors right now, check that list once, maybe twice a month prior to winter break, but coming back from winter break, check it weekly because that list will explode. Very quick story I'm going to tell here, Julie. Last year, we had a brand new local scholarship. The McHenry Lions Club contacted us early last school year and said, we want to award 2 of your students $500 each, and we want these students to be sort of your non-traditional students. We don't want to give these awards to students who are already going to be receiving multiple awards. We want to spread the wealth. Mm-hmm. And so we worked together and we said, you know what? We've got a lot of students who go to community colleges, for 2-year programs, for certification programs. Let's target that population. Julie, how many people do you think applied for these 2 awards?
Out of everyone in the high school?
Out of every senior last year, there was about 550 seniors last year. How many people do you think applied for these 2 awards?
10 or less.
2.
Yeah.
You can take a guess who received those 2 awards. The 2 people that applied.
Yeah. I agree. I think people just don't know about it, or kind of seniors, when they're seniors, they're not always so proactive about going out and looking. So, yes.
Or they assume that there's always going to be a better candidate. That's something I run into a lot.
Right.
One,
But just like that, that's a great example.
yeah, one of the two students who received this $500 scholarship last year graduated from one of our alternative programs. This person started junior year. You're supposed to start junior year with at least 12 credits to be on track. This person started junior year with 6. Graduated last year on time from one of our alternative programs. The first number in his GPA, 1. He won $500 because he took half an hour to write a 250-word essay. $500. Thank you.
Yeah, it's as easy as that. I know when I was a senior, I was not caring about this at all, but once I started working in financial aid, I've worked at a couple different schools. All you have to do as a student is go in and ask them. It's the students that, oh, I'm not going to get it. I'm not even going to ask about it. Go in and ask. They're likely going to find something for you because you're showing that you're interested in this and all of that.
The other place students can look for scholarships are national sources. This is usually what people think of when they think, I'm going to look for scholarships. It's usually national scholarships, like the Coca-Cola Foundation, that's a national scholarship. The institutional ones and the local ones, for the most part, are typically just only seniors can apply for them. Some of the national awards can go as young as freshmen in high school. This slide, like most of the slides in this presentation, as I mentioned in a comment I dropped in YouTube there, most of this content is in an existing resource called the McHenry High School College and Career Guide. It's posted in Schoology. Every student at McHenry High School has a course in Schoology that has this orange arrow logo in it. If you click that, the very first link underneath our names will bring up the College and Career Guide, which has the vast majority of all the content in this presentation. If someone earlier asked, where can I find this? I would say about 3/4 of the content that's directly in here. And some slides, including this one, I pulled directly from, I literally copied and pasted it in here from our College and Career Guide. So that is your resource. It's also, there's a College and Career Counseling page on the district website where the College and Career Guide is also accessible. And this, if you ever want to go back to this video will be permanently posted on this exact same URL in YouTube. But these all hyperlink directly to free scholarship search engines. I'd like to see students start with the one in Naviance, simply because you won't get spammed as much from that one as you will from some of the others. But these are all free, reputable national search engines. Who should apply? We kind of hit this one already, Julie. Anyone should apply. If you meet the minimum criteria, throw yourself out there. The only thing it costs is time to complete applications. I know I've heard people frame it as the highest paying part-time job any high school student can get. My student who won the $500 last year, he took him about half an hour to write a 250-word essay. And, that's a pretty well-paying, if you frame it that way, pretty well-paying part-time job, $500 for half an hour's worth of work. You don't know who else is or isn't applying. You don't know what their credentials are, what their qualifications are. You don't know how they're going to frame themselves. And with some of those, a lot of these will require short essays. You don't really know what the people who are evaluating these things are looking for and how your story might connect with someone who's reading and evaluating these things. So put yourself out there. All it costs you is time. And you might walk away with some money.
Yeah, I also want to mention that a lot of, I use this example a lot, fast food places, if you're a senior and you're working at like McDonald's or Wendy's or Chick-fil-A, a lot of those places do offer scholarships for their workers. So you can ask your manager about it, you can do your research, but that's one that I see students coming in with McDonald's scholarships all the time. So just wanted to mention that as well.
Sure, thank you. Here's just some application tips and resources. Again, this is another slide I just lifted directly out of our College and Career Guide that we've already developed. Julie, what's one scholarship tip? What do you think is an important one that you would encourage students to do or consider?
Sure. So I think when you're filling out the scholarships, read over your application, your grammar, all of that stuff to make sure you sound like you know what you're talking about. And yeah, I think like you said, if it pertains to you, share personal stories. however you feel like you can relate and include how the scholarship will help you succeed. So just by getting a $200 scholarship, this could help pay for one or two of my books. That's awesome. So yeah.
Yeah. My student with the 1 point something GPA from last year is presently in MCC's autos program. And in his 250-word essay, he indicated how much this will help him get started, and how this will really help him kind of get things back on track. And I can argue that yes, he was one of two applicants for the two awards. However, he didn't know that. They didn't have to give him that award. They could have given all 1,000 to the other award who had the 3 point something GPA. But he was very honest, and he took the time to read it and review it, and he got $500 for half an hour's worth of work.
Pretty cool.
Yeah. A couple of resources before we look at what MCC specifically offers. This person's name, Sean Coveney. He is our representative from the Illinois Student Assistance Commission. The sole purpose of this organization is to help folks take action on financing their next steps beyond high school. This honestly is the best person that I would go to with some of those more nuanced situations. Some of those, like how does this investment get calculated in, or I have a non-traditional family structure. I would just being completely honest with you. Again, this is what Sean does for a living. So he would be when I have questions about things, I turn to Sean because he can answer some of those really nuanced questions for me. There's a question in the chat that just popped up. Naviance requires a school registration code. Where can I find that? Simply send me an email and I can get you that parent info. So for the person that just asked that, send me an email. Again, Menke Curtis, MENKE CURTIS at DIST156.org. Send me a quick email and I can get you registered as a parent in Naviance. Thank you for that question. I got one more slide here, Julie, and then we're going to turn things over to you and MCC's resources. Here's just a couple others. The top one there is the exact FAFSA web URL. That's where you go. The one underneath it, studentaid.gov, that is the broader Department of Education site that houses the FAFSA. It also has all sorts of information on every other financial aid topic we've talked about. They also have a free scholarship search engine there. So there are a lot of those situational questions built into the resources that studentaid.gov has. The next two, college scorecard and return on investment, are for like myself, some of you folks out there that love looking into numbers and statistics. You kind of data nerds out there. College scorecard is a great website that kind of compares some of the outcomes and some of the costs with schools that are out there. This one down here is a relatively recent one that I've noticed. It's called return on investment. You can look up any school in the nation and see what the outcome is. Like 10 years down the road, if I graduated from this school, what does the average person make? 30 years down the road, if I graduated from that school, what does the average person make? You'd be really surprised to see what some of that outcome data is. And then a direct link to MCC's financial aid resources there. All right, so Julie, I'm going to back out of this presentation here.
Awesome.
And let's take a look at some of the financial aid resources and opportunities that MCC offers. On any given year, 45 to 50% of McHenry High School grads take their next step at MCC or another local community college. So I'm going to lean into those odds anytime I am looking at what resource partners to bring on board for presentations and just general assistance. So Julie, what does MCC offer?
Sure. So when you go to the MCC website, www.mchenry.edu, this is where you'll start. Applications for next fall have open, so you can go on and apply. If you're coming this spring, go in and apply right now. So MCC, I love that we redid our website because it wasn't the best before, but now I really like it. So kind of the first step, if you can scroll down a little bit, there's just some areas on that purple bar. Go over the paying for college, and then you can go right to that link to go to the financial aid page. So if you can't remember the exact financial aid website, it's that easy to find on the homepage. Okay, so I love that on the left side, you'll see that purple bar with information on a lot of things that we just talked about in the presentation. So if you maybe, if we didn't answer all of your questions, feel free to check out this website. Again, it's going to be general. There'll be general information as well if maybe you're not sure if you're coming to MCC. So let's see there. Okay. So you go to the financial aid, and then if you scroll down, you can go to the scholarship opportunities on that left-hand side. It's at the very bottom. Yes. So you'll want to go to scholarship opportunities, and that is going to talk about all the fun stuff, right? All the scholarships that we do offer at MCC. So if you have applied, it will have an option for you to go directly to a scholarship application that I was talking about before. So first, you're going to apply to MCC. And then once you've applied to MCC, you'll complete a scholarship application, just one. It's awesome. So if you're coming in the spring, scholarships for next spring are open now. So you can go ahead and apply for this application to see what you might qualify for in the spring. So that is scholarships on there. You'll complete the scholarship application. It's basic info. You might have to give a little statement or something about yourself, but it's gonna basically match you to hundreds of scholarships that you could be eligible for, which is awesome. One-stop shop. And then we can talk a little bit more. If you scroll down, you'll just see those high impact scholarships, non-credit career training scholarships. So even if maybe your program doesn't count for financial aid eligibility, you could still get some scholarships through here. And then we do have scholarships. We do have a retired adult program as well. I can't remember the exact ages right now, but there's all those sorts of scholarships as well. So we can scroll back up to that paying for college tab again. And then right under financial aid, we'll select student employment to talk a little bit more about working at MCC. So institutional federal work study. This is for students that maybe don't have a big financial need, so they don't qualify for that federal work study. But don't worry, you can still absolutely get a job on your campus. It'll be worked through the same thing. You can still choose to take that money and put it towards your tuition. For federal work study below, it talks a little bit more about that. You do need to maintain a good GPA in order to keep your job. So at most schools, that is a 2.0. Here at MCC, it is a 2.0. And then see our current student employment options. If you're a little bit more curious about what kind of jobs we do have at MCC, you can click on that. Like we're looking for a bunch of student employees right now. So if you're coming in the spring, it's an awesome opportunity to apply for those. I know everywhere is looking where financial aid is hiring. If you want to work in financial aid,
shameless plug.
yes, shameless plug. I was a student worker in financial aid, and it worked out for me pretty good. So that's just a little bit more about working here on campus at MCC. All right, we have a lot of other great resources at MCC. I want to, if I can find the right page, let's see. Okay, so go all the way back up to the top of a little bit above that, okay. And you'll see students in the left-hand corner way at the top. Mm-hmm. So you're going to want to click on students. Again, it's going to talk about scholarships that are available. If you scroll down to current students right there, to find out a little bit more about the resources that we offer at MCC, you can go to assistance, that little heart with the hand. And if you click on that, we have transportation for whatever reason you can't drive or you need an Uber. We at MCC can help set that up for you, which is awesome, to make sure you can get to class, even if you may not have the resources at the moment. Student Success Fund for emergencies. Your car breaks down, like you said, you can't get to school. Something happens in your life that's financially troubling, we do have that emergency financial assistance that you can apply for. You can get, like it says right there, up to $500. Again, we're really trying to help our students succeed. So this is why we do offer all of these resources. Something new, which is awesome, is the food insecurity relief. I mean, it's newer. Something that we've recently done that just started last spring was giving out MCC Cafe cards to students. So they can apply for that. For low income students, they can get up to a certain amount of meals each week, which is awesome. That's one of my favorite resources that we have here. And then say you need a laptop, we have technology support. The list really could go on and on. So I really encourage you to check out this student assistant page. We have on-site counselors. You can do it virtual, texting, all of that. So yeah, I feel like I went through that really fast, but we went over most of it in the first part of the presentation. Do you have any questions, Curtis?
I'll just kind of reinforce what you said.
Sure.
MCC really is the education and training hub in this county. The irony with McHenry County is that we don't have any standalone four-year brick and mortar schools. We have a couple satellite campuses from places, but I think that just reinforces, how important MCC is to our community and our county. Again, as I mentioned before, up to 50%, depending on the graduating class, of our students take their next step at MCC or another Illinois community college. And I think that just reinforces how much we value and trust their programming. Whether you take Earth Science 101 at MCC, Earth Science 101 at Northern, Earth Science 101 at Bradley, U of I, you're taking Earth Science 101. You're learning the same thing. What's different is where you are living, but what is the same is what you are learning. Or whether it be in a shorter term certification programs, they really have something for just about everybody there. And again, I'm just gonna kind of go back to a slide earlier, the presentation here, just to reinforce just the cost aspect of it. Even this is all pre applying for federal aid and whatnot. The tuition for 1 year at MCC is about $4,000 for most students. It's really, even after awards and scholarships, it's really hard to match that price at many four-year schools. And this is going to sound like I'm overly promoting MCC, and I'm by no means am I trying to steer anyone off of any ideas or plans or prospects that you're considering. But I would just simply urge you to keep it in mind, especially if finances are a concern like they are for most families.
You can take classes even if you are away at a four-year institution, you can take classes here in the summer to get some of those gen ed, some biology, math, whatever you need, which is really nice, and that can progress your college to get done earlier. But yeah, most students, to talk about that tuition again, a lot of students that qualify for those grants are going to get most, if not all, of their tuition covered, which is awesome, and even some money back to get those books. So whether you're taking classes in the summer or coming to MCC in the fall, it's just an awesome opportunity for you to see what we offer and to get all those education benefits a little bit closer to home.
As with anything, as we start to wrap things up here, Julie, I'll put one more quick plug in for anyone who has any remaining questions in the comments. We are here to support you. As we mentioned earlier, MCC will also help any student navigate or any family, I should say, navigate the financial aid process, including completing the FAFSA. And again, that's regardless of if your student has any interest in actually attending MCC as a student. I got a question here, Julie, your email address. Do you mind providing that for our viewers?
Sure.
And listeners?
I don't think I can type in the chat, but
that's okay. You can say it out loud and I'll type it in.
Sure. It's going to be J Durkin, DURKIN, at McHenry.edu. And then my direct number is 815-455-8943. So you can contact me either of those ways. Right now, I am doing a lot of high school traveling and stuff. So email is going to be the fastest you're going to hear back from me. But if you ever do want to come into the office, any of our specialists here can help you through the process. So we're here for you, just like Curtis said. We're going to get through this. I know it can be stressful.
Yeah. Rely on your resources. You're not on an island, as a family when it comes to completing these things, financing things. Use your resources, use us. We're here to help without judgment, and just unconditional help. That's what we provide here. I'm not seeing any other questions come in the comments there, so we'll go ahead and wrap things up. Julie, again, thank you for your time and for your presentation and the information you provided. Again, MCC is arguably, if not my most trusted partner, it's way up there in the list just because of everything you do for our families and our students, and we're grateful to have you there as well. On behalf of McHenry County College and McHenry High School, we thank you for supporting your students, for attending today, watching this video after the fact, and we're here to help and support. Take care.